right, welcome and hello to this beautiful Thursday. I hope everyone is doing so well, and I am just so excited to see, well, not really see, but to be here with every single one of you for this week's webinar. I am so pleased because we are being joined by our very own Grace Green from Double the Donation. But before we dive in, we'll do a little round of introductions in case you're not even familiar with who I am. But my name is Kelly Cristaldi, and I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Virtuous, and I have the lovely opportunity of working really closely with our product and engineering teams, but also with our customers to find out what's going on in our product, what's working, what's not, but also to bring you the latest and greatest improvements, news, and really just really great tactical ways to increase giving to move so you can move the needle on generosity for your organization. Grace, it's wonderful to have you here today. How are we doing?
Thank you, Kelly. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting my camera turned on, so hopefully we can get that sorted out in just a second, but really excited to be here with everyone, and thank you for having me. If you're not familiar with who I am or with Double the Donation, my name is Grace. Like Kelly mentioned, I'm a partnership success specialist on the Double the Donation team. If you're not familiar with Double the Donation, we are the leading provider of matching gift automation for nonprofits and educational institutions to help you raise more from corporate matching gifts. And there we go. Okay, there I am.
Perfect.
Hello, everyone.
Excellent. It's so good
awesome.
To you. Awesome. Well, we do have just like a really quick housekeeping before we dive in. I wanted to make sure that Grace and I just had plenty of time to dive into the material since this is like a really quick 30-minute lunchtime session. But before we really get going today, we do want to make sure that you can communicate and chat and talk with one another. One of the best things that we love here for our webinars is to make it really communicative, making sure that everyone can share ideas, share questions, respond to each other. So please, like throughout today's session, if you do have questions, please don't feel like you have to leave it until the very end of today to put that in the chat. Simply drop that in there and Grace and I can help answer that during that conversation, or if it's a little more appropriate and timely to answer at the end, we certainly can do so there. This session is being recorded, so for any reason you needed to leave or something comes up, there's tech issues, all sorts of reasons, not to worry, a recap will be sent out tomorrow in the email. And lastly, we are just so thankful that you're here. So to dive in for today's material, I love a good agenda. It just gives you the full story of what we're looking at today, but we're going to go through three major areas and of course answer those questions at the end, but we're going to walk through what exactly is a responsive matching gift program. Of course, we hear things like matching gifts. Our donors can go to their jobs and they can get like extra money from them. That's amazing, but what actually is it? And we're going to walk through that. We're also going to walk through ways to increase donor awareness around those matching gifts and when to connect your donor to next best steps. So that's the full scope of what we're looking at today. And Grace, I think you're actually going to kick it off first with a quick just matching gift overview.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. And of course, just to echo Kelly's sentiment, please, if you have any questions or comments as we're kind of moving through this presentation, leave those in the chat. We're really excited to be spending this quick 30 minutes with you. So feel free to kind of engage as we're moving on. But to get us started, I want to go with a quick matching gift overview, just to give you an idea of what a matching gift program looks like on kind of the other side of things. So every company has specific parameters that they're setting for their matching gift program. So essentially what this means is there is no universal standard for what makes a matching gift program, but it allows us to have an idea into what is going into each individual matching gift program. So we have kind of 5 of the main parameters here on the screen, and I'm going to quickly walk us through this to give us an idea of what kind of makes a corporate matching gift program. So the first on this list is institution eligibility. So that's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Not every fundraising organization is going to be eligible for every single matching gift program, but typically if you are a registered 501c3, there's a pretty good chance that you're eligible. So we see strictly political organizations tending to be less eligible. But the good news is if you have some kind of fundraising initiative, if you're a faith-based organization that has some kind of food bank associated or a disaster relief, something like that, where there is kind of a philanthropic initiative associated with your faith-based organization, you're still going to be eligible for matching gifts. This is actually broken down on a company by company basis. So we'll see some companies have matching gift programs that specifically align with their mission. So maybe if they have something associated with education, then they put more of an emphasis on matching to schools and kind of so on and so forth. So that's institution eligibility. Next, we have match ratio here. And what this is, it's basically the idea of if I give $100, how much of that donation is my company willing to match? So we see the most common match ratio come in at a 1-to-1 ratio, which is exactly what it sounds like. I give $100 and my company gives $100 as well. However, that's not the only match ratio. We've seen match ratios come in at 2-to-1. So I give $100, my company gives $200. We've seen companies have a 3-to-1 match ratio. And then we've also seen kind of on the flip side, a 0.5-to-1 match ratio. So again, no universal standard here, but important to know and kind of keep in mind as you incorporate these programs at your organization to know kind of what you might be eligible for. Employee eligibility is pretty similar to institution eligibility in that it's just not every employee is necessarily going to be eligible for every matching gift program. We've actually seen employee eligibility kind of expand in recent years with the growth of matching gift programs in general. But essentially what this means is a company matching to gifts from full-time employees or part-time employees, retirees, all of the above, a combination somewhere in there. Essentially, this is just whether or not a company is going to engage with each kind of level of employee in their matching gift program. Gift amount is going to translate to your minimum or maximum amount that a company is willing to match. So every company is going to have some kind of threshold that they are willing to meet in order to pursue a corporate matching gift. So we see minimums typically coming in around the $25 mark. That's pretty standard across the board. Again, not quite universal, but we do see that as kind of a industry standard. And then the maximum amount typically has a much larger of a range. We have some Fortune 500 companies with maximums around $20,000 to $30,000 to $50,000. And then we also have some smaller companies that have maximums of $3,000 to $5,000. I will say the most common or average maximum that we see is around $10,000. So definitely still a lot of opportunity there. But just something to keep in mind as you're kind of pushing these programs among your audience is what is the smallest donation an employee can get matched and what is the largest donation or largest sum of donations an employee can get matched. And then last here on this list of kind of common matching gift parameters is program deadlines. I think that program deadlines are kind of the most important for you as the nonprofit to keep in mind, because essentially what this means is every donation that is eligible for a matching gift request has some kind of expiration date associated with it. This is typically follows the calendar year. So if you're thinking of a donation that was made in March, someone likely has until the end of the year in December to get that gift matched. Sometimes we see there's a little bit of a grace period. So maybe you're looking at the end of January or maybe the end of April of the following year. Sometimes these are timed around the fiscal year. Again, unfortunately, no universal standard here, but good to keep in mind that if you have donations that were maybe made earlier in the year, maybe donations you made this week, as you look ahead and think about your end of year giving, your Giving Tuesday, all of those things. I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit there, but it'll be here before we know it. As you think about those things, program deadlines are great to keep in mind because it's a great way to kind of follow up with donors, like we'll talk about a little bit later on, and make sure that they know how to pursue those next steps if they're still eligible for a matching gift.
Awesome. Go ahead. So sorry.
No, you're fine. So this is just a kind of overview of what matching gifts are and how the programs are kind of created. And it's just there to give you an idea of what these programs can look like and how your donors are going to be able to engage with their company.
Excellent. Yeah, this is all really helpful knowledge too. That's going to set us up for more of the agenda and more of what we're going to talk about here in the next slide. But I remember when I worked for my alumni center in college, yes, I was that person that called you for donations like 6 months after graduation. I am sorry, but we always loved it when we had a particular employee match. And I went to school in North Carolina. Duke Energy is like one of the biggest, if not the biggest energy provider of the state. And they had a 2-to-1 matching ratio. And it was great because our software that we used at my organization or at my university actually told us when something was a matching gift eligibility. And whenever we saw that 2-to-1 come up, we were all so excited. And plus, a lot of our donors didn't even know. So we were able to tell them, hey, did you know that you're actually eligible for matching gift? Like, just go back to your employer and fill out whatever necessary paperwork. So, but we're going to go more into that awareness stuff here in just a little bit. But what is a matching gift program? Grace, I mean, it's just so much. I really feel like a lot about our Responsing Match program is one, just knowing that it exists and making sure that our supporters know that it is an existing fundraiser strategy that we can take part in.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right there, Kelly. And it's this idea of responsive fundraising and knowing your donor base on this kind of personal level and connecting them to the avenues that make the most sense for them really starts with knowing or asking, if you don't know, where a donor works, and then being able to kind of provide them with those actionable next steps to get their gift matched. So I think one thing to remember here is that the biggest barrier to securing a matching gift is often donor awareness. So naturally, if a donor doesn't know that they are eligible for a matching gift program, or if they don't even know if they have a matching gift program at their company, they're never going to take the next steps to actually get that match submitted. So having a responsive matching gift program is really just going the extra step to know or ask where your donors work and then be able to kind of connect them from there. So one recommendation that I have here is just introducing matching gifts early and often to make sure that your donors are aware of this opportunity, especially if it's applicable to them. So this can look like incorporating it in your appeals or on your donation form. But really, it's just a matter of making sure that your donors know about this process and are able to engage with it and understand that it's applicable to them. I know I'm guilty of reading something and skimming it and being like, oh, well, this has nothing to do with me, so I'll just move on. And so I think it's really just making that connection of saying, hey, we actually know you work at the Home Depot, or we know you work at Duke Energy. And because of that, we're going to be able to take these next steps and get you to submit that matching gift request and take the impact of your donation that much further.
Absolutely. And, we had a really good question just come through that's really timely for this thread here is, if they want to learn more about their own company's program, what department should we recommend they start with? That's an excellent question, because yes, we can say to them, you work for one of these many wonderful organizations that do believe in philanthropy and will do matching gifts. They're aware there, but then there's a slew of other questions like, well, who do I go to? And, what department? It depends on the organization. They may need to go talk to their boss. They may have more information. HR is a great place to start, and so is finance. But if it is a particularly large, let's say Fortune 500 style company, like a Home Depot, a Lowe's, a Bank of America, they very well could have a committee for philanthropy built into their organizational system. And they may be able to give them more knowledge, that paperwork, anything that they may need to fill out in order to secure that matching gift. Sometimes too, when the donor makes the initial donation, they'll need that receipt to then give to HR, finance, whomever kind of handles the matching gift side of it, to make sure that it is legitimate, it's not a fake, and that they actually can follow through with matching the rest of that donation, which is great. Another really quick question too, before we move on, is how do you recommend including matching gift info on a website donation form? And Grace, I'm happy to answer that question unless you'd like to answer it too.
I will chime in really quickly and then I'll have you supplement as well, Kelly. I think that incorporating an ask into a website donation form, if you're using Virtuous, we have a direct integration, Double the Donation does, with Virtuous to actually add the Double the Donation 360 Match Pro search tool to your donation form. But I think the easiest way is to just add that optional field that says, tell us where you work, and then be able to kind of provide next steps. Again, if you're just thinking about introducing matching gifts as early and as often as possible, something as simple as a little disclaimer that says, your gift could be eligible for a match. Check to see if your employer matches gifts and let us know here. And then you can kind of engage with that search tool if you're using something like Double the Donation, or just store that free form text and be able to kind of connect them after the fact as well.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, is making sure that there's some way to capture that company information. And then this is something that we've talked about previously when it comes to like other forms of giving, like stock gifts, cryptocurrency, things like that are non-cash assets, but I still think it goes in the same vein as cash assets. Make it very clear to your donors and your supporters alike that you can absolutely participate in a matching gift program, whether that's very clearly stated on the donation form, like Grace just outlined for us, or if it's an actual page on your website that outlines every way that you can give to your organization. It's outlined very distinctly and clearly. And if there's additional steps that they may need to take, like a little bit of homework after the fact, perhaps include that information there, just because transparency is really respected and admired upon our donors. And we want to make sure that the expectation is very clear. So these are all really fantastic questions. Keep them coming. I'm loving the discussion. To the other point just made, yes, this is a great SMS opportunity to send to donors as well. It's a great follow-up point as well. There is just a lot that you can do with the matching gift program. But even more than that, and this again, like we're just really following a great conversation here, is how do we increase donor awareness around matching gifts? This one seems to be like the most popular question.
Absolutely. And this is actually a great point to what you just mentioned, Kelly, about having some kind of ways to give page or something that donors can always come back to even after they've made the donation. So I think the best way to increase donor awareness around matching gifts is, again, to just incorporate it naturally throughout your typical communication channels. It doesn't have to be that you're dedicating an entire newsletter to matching gifts or something like that. But if you're sending out updates or follow-up emails, something like that you'd be able to add a little tagline. Maybe it's something you incorporate in your email signature, where at the end of an email, you're saying, don't forget to check if your gift is eligible to be matched. Something like that. And to Kelly's point about a ways to give page or something of that nature where you're allowing donors to come back to, one thing that I would definitely recommend incorporating in a page like that is actually your EIN number. I think that's one of the most frequently asked questions that donors have for a nonprofit if they're going to submit that matching gift request is, what's the EIN number? What's your mailing address? What are these things that might not always be super obvious, but are going to be necessary for a matching gift request? So things like that are going to be really helpful to incorporate. Additionally, follow-up emails we see are going to be huge for this, especially if you know where a donor works and you can say, hey, again, we want to thank you for your donation. You told us you work at the Home Depot, so why don't you actually click here, this direct link, and go ahead and start the matching gift for Home Depot. Social media and kind of SMS with this is a great way to be able to kind of connect donors to next steps and say, hey, thank you so much for matching. Why don't you kind of follow this link and get started here? And I think really the idea here is, again, coming back to introducing matching gifts early and often and making sure that donors are even aware of this opportunity. We see really good response rates when it comes to matching gifts because it really is a double donation without having to reach back into your own wallet. So being able to find out that you're eligible for this and connect donors to the next steps is going to be a great way to kind of garner support, garner attention, and then also continue to drive value for your donors. Because if they were able to give $100, get that gift matched, and then you are able to turn that $200 into some really mission critical opportunities, that's going to be exactly the kind of news that your donors are looking to hear.
Absolutely. And it's also very critical. And I've actually been seeing a ton of questions come through, which is really great. But I want to continue like this train of thought because it is really just so important to increase donor awareness. And it's not just a one-time thing that you can do. It's not like, say, a blitz that you can do as well. One way that you can really encourage and increase that donor awareness is, I know we've kind of lightly talked about Giving Tuesday. Yes, that seems like so far away. It is only March. That is in November. However, life goes at you fast. And before we know it, it will indeed be Giving Tuesday. And so one way that you can actually continue nurturing and stewarding those relationships with your supporters, particularly those first-time donors, which, as we all know, when they're steward in that first 30 days, there's something like a 200 to 300% increase in the likelihood they will donate for a second time. Following up in your next email touch to them and that thank you message saying, thank you so much for contributing for our Giving Tuesday campaign or capital campaign, whatever it's going to, and actually mentioning in that copy, hi, thank you again so much. You can actually double, if not triple, your gift by seeing if your employer actually matches it. And then they can actually go back to their employer and say, oh, y'all can actually match this for me. And that increases their level of generosity. It increases the likelihood of them becoming that second, third repeat donor, increasing that donor retention and increasing average gift size, which, as we all know, those are really important metrics that we all look at every day as fundraisers. And those are the things that we really want to increase throughout the year. So just really light touches like that, just gentle reminders, particularly around Giving Tuesday, year-end campaigns, major gift campaigns, really can go the distance for a lot of supporters. But of course, as we're talking about next steps, it's only timely that we do talk about what are the next best steps for our supporters. So first and foremost, we can suggest matching gifts in the donation process. So let's say, for example, you are a major gift officer, you are at coffee with a lovely donor, and you're talking about new ways that they can be contributing to your organization. Perhaps you have an ask amount of like $2,000 you'd like to ask them for to contribute to a new housing project that you're undergoing right now in a community that's been harmed by tornadoes. That's quite timely because we're seeing that in Mississippi and Alabama currently. Perhaps during that process, as you're stewarding and having these conversations, you can suggest matching gifts in the donation process. Now, of course, it goes back to Grace's earlier point, making sure there's no constraints with the company that they are employed by, making sure that it fits within the parameters. But really, that's just a great way to immediately like double that gift size that can then go and, let's say, rebuild a home in an area that was recently ravaged by the tornadoes. Next step, like we've been talking about, is you can actually email your donors about matching gifts. We can do that secondary, third touch after major campaigns like we just talked about. I don't see any harm in actually mentioning matching gifts in like your monthly newsletter that you send out to your donors. Really simple touches like that. I don't think everything needs to be built around like a major campaign or a major initiative. Sometimes really helpful reminders throughout the year is just as important, and honestly, a little bit easier too, just to say, hey, let's make sure that we include it in this month's newsletter. You can even take it a step further if you have the capabilities within your team of actually creating a footer banner that lives permanently on your email newsletter that says, did you know that you can match your gift for our organization? And then it links out to your Ways to Give page where it can detail more information about how they can get that info from their employer. Third, you can build the ask into your follow-up steps. So that's your phone calls, your emails. This goes back to everything that we've been talking about. I really feel like the ways to truly build out a matching gift program, not only is just, of course, starting the program, is a lot of it comes with the follow through. It just comes from making sure that it's known, people are aware of it, and they know how to participate. Now, of course, for that ask in your follow-up steps, it's really critical that when you do implement this program at your organization, you have stakeholders buy into it as well. I remember being a fundraiser on a team of like one, which is really crazy that I spent a lot of my career as like one of two, maybe key fundraisers for orgs, but it was so much more than us buying into a matching gift program. I had to make sure that our front office staff knew, that they knew when taking donations over the phone or they were getting checks in the mail, that we made sure that they were aware of matching gift programs and they can actually talk about it to our donors and make it understood in a really easy way of how to participate. It's making sure that our finance team is aware that, yes, oh my gosh, double donations, that's amazing. And they're going, but is it a scam? It's not, I promise. It's a new program. So really making sure that wherever you're going to be accepting donations, who's going to be touching that, processing the data, they're super built in and they're aware of what's going on as well. And then lastly, we want to suggest during our ongoing cultivation efforts, I don't think there's any harm in just every time you're having like an event and you have your keynote speaker or say it's your executive director up there and it's that big moment, right? Like we're in our the finale of the event, we're really trying to like fundraise as much as we can. Maybe it's like a paddle raising event, maybe it's an auction, whatever it may be. It's just making sure that we sprinkle in there other ways to increase that generosity. You can do matching gifts. We take non-cash assets. We do all these other things. Just making sure that it's suggested there in those ongoing efforts. Anything else you'd like to suggest there?
I think I just want to piggyback onto one thing that you mentioned when you're thinking about maybe talking to a major donor or something like that and mentioning matching gifts in the donation process. I think one of the really great things about matching gifts is they can turn into more. So if you have a major donor who you're hoping to ask for $2,000 and then secure a $2,000 matching gift request, maybe that turns into a company-wide matching gift program where they up their match ratio to 2-to-1. So because you kind of stewarded that relationship and you connected with them and made sure they were aware of these opportunities, it has the potential and the possibility to grow and snowball into something even bigger and even potentially connect more people in and around your area to your organization.
Oh, absolutely. That's so key, particularly if you're an organization that is working frontline humanitarian first aid work, especially in times of crisis. Talk about like a snowball effect. We saw that during COVID. We see that every time there is a humanitarian aid effort from a hurricane, tornadoes, earthquakes, anything like that. Like that's such a simple way to triple, quadruple, completely change things, which is incredible. But it's also really great for local grassroots community efforts too. I don't want to just say that, yes, like if you work in those fields, it's just for them. Absolutely not. It is for our smaller community grassroots efforts too that feel that impact immediately and so quickly. And can make a huge difference in a matter of 24 hours, which is really quite incredible. I do want to leave time for some questions. I see some folks have asked a few things here, and let's see here. So first couple of great questions here is, what methods to collect employer information do you suggest?
So great question. I think the easiest and simplest answer here is just asking. So maybe you're sending out a survey to all of your donors in like an upcoming newsletter. I think the donation form is a really great place to ask, especially when you're kind of collecting a lot of relevant information anyway. So as you're asking for first name, last name, email address, employer, home address, things like that, I think it fits in very nicely to ask there. But really any way that you're effectively connecting with your donors is great. I know Kelly mentioned on phone calls, that's really awesome as well. Just make sure you're storing that information accordingly. You don't want anyone like just walking around the office trying to think, okay, John works here, Sally works here. Just make sure you're storing that information in your CRM and kind of keeping up with that.
Absolutely. And these two questions go hand in hand. But what is the best way to search for companies with matching gift programs?
Great question. So good news is that a lot more companies are developing these programs. They're incorporating these programs into their employee benefits package. So there's a good chance that if it's a either a large company or a relatively established company that they have these type of programs. But I think the best way is to really just look. It can be a little bit daunting to try and scour the internet. I would recommend incorporating some kind of database there. If you'd like to learn more about a database, I'd recommend going to Double the Donations website and just kind of poking around and seeing what that looks like. But there's several resources online where you can find out about a company's matching gift program. If you know you have a lot of donors that already work for a specific company, I think a great way is just looking up that specific organization and saying employee matching gift program or employee benefits or something like that. But definitely just kind of using the power of the internet and finding out what's out there.
Absolutely. And if anybody that's on here has questions specifically for Grace, if you don't mind actually dropping your email into the chat, that way folks can get to you with any additional questions that they may have. But just to wrap up today's session, this was amazing. There's like a ton of wealth. I feel like we can go over like multiple sessions talking about matching gifts, like really getting into the nitty gritty of it. So this has been fabulous. Just really quickly, before we wrap up today, I do want to give y'all just two quick key takeaways. So you can end today's session, you're like, oh, I got something in my hand from it. So First up is actually Grace's team over at Double Donation wrote a beautiful blog post all about matching gift programs. You can actually scan this QR code here and it'll take you directly to that page. Of course, it'll also be included in our follow-up email that'll go out tomorrow. So please feel free to scan that. It's so great that we have QR technology. It's funny, 10 years ago, it just seemed like a very what was it, BlackBerry thing, and then it died, and then it came back during COVID, and now we love it again. So yes, feel free to scan that QR code there to read more. And then lastly, if you are new or if you are a returning visitor or attendee of RNS, the Responsive Nonprofit Summit, it is coming back this May from 9th through the 11th. We're actually spreading it out over 3 days, 3 half days. So that way you can actually attend some sessions, go do other things that you may need to do for your role, but simply scan to register there as well. It'll take you directly to that registration page. You can fill out all the great things, but it's going to be a ton of fun. 3 days, I'll be there. So will a lot of our other really wonderful speakers from around the country. So if you're interested, please go ahead and scan that as well. But thank you all so much for coming, and we hope to see you in the next session. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kelly.